want to talk about my childhood a little bit. When I was around 6 years old, I went to friends' houses and played NES and C64. And then my grandma went to Mallorca, and then I said, "Please, can you buy me a Nintendo Entertainment System?" And then she came home with an MX-10. And although I'm not spoiled I wasn't spoiled, but I reacted really like I was a spoiled child because I was a little bit angry. But then I learned that you can program stuff on this machine, so I did my first program application. It was a virtual piano where I could play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And then later on, she bought me this typewriter, like a laptop typewriter. It's like a hybrid where you can load and save. So I wrote some death metal lyrics on this machine. And when I went to my my grandma's home a few years ago, I started this device and I just pressed Control L, and then all my lyrics printed out on paper. It was really a great nostalgic moment for me. Later on, I continued my interest in media, music, and computers, and I studied interaction design at Malmö Högskola, Malmö University, that interaction design master program, where I graduated, and then I started my company. It's called DoFi, together with Mikael Johansson and Magnus Wallon in 2006. And we had this idea that we could like big IT projects were often written on paper and then shipped into product development and IT development, but there were no testing involved. So we thought that the projects often were really expensive. So we thought of this rapid prototyping, and instead of just making projects on paper, we actually built really quick prototypes. And we thought that each project will generate like a component which we can use in our big DoFi library. So each time a new client came, we could put together 1 or 2 or 3 components and build really quick prototypes. Later on, we have changed that business to now we have a vision to make learning and accessible tools for everyone. And DoFi have been involved in a lot of research projects where the first project we were involved with was Paperworks. And the mission there was, how can you use pen and paper and make digital media or digital interactions? So it was a 3-year EU project which ended up in a big platform, but also we made this prototype in how students and pupils could collaborate with pen and paper and make a kind of a digital blog, just working with paper and pen. So it was, you might say, ubiquitous computing, because you couldn't see the computer. It was just pen and paper. And then we worked with Living Labs, Nivinavi. UUT is the latest project where we try to how we can motivate and engage people in wheelchair. Can we invent some digital sensors or haptic devices that enables them to go and train or be motivated to train with the wheelchair? Also, Stadsfabula is an art project, a 3-year research project also. So we have a lot of research in our company. And during the late 2000s, this term was coined, but having a place-centric design perspective, because I don't know, during maybe 2007, 2008, all the smartphone appeared, and all of a sudden you actually could build something for place, and then you have to also integrate the place when designing place-specific services. So that I think that's a term we always think about, the place when we design our projects. This is a kind of a difficult concept, but Per Linde coined it for its urban probes. You take a prototype and you go into an urban area, you put it down there, and then you invite a lot of, in our cases, youth, also a lot of young people, and see what's happening there. And then you take out the prototype and you develop it further and you put it inside again. And it's a way of changing the space in urban areas, and how people, it's kind of a way of you don't just put it's not just like a web page, but if you take an interactive device where a lot of people can interact with, you also change the area and how people behave, the social behaviors and such. It's more of a research term. And one of the projects we did was called Blue Promo, where we built this a prototype which pushed out music to people that were passing by, and we tried it on a bus through Rosengård, so the local artists could publish their music in the neighborhood, and we got some successful results from that project, and it also led on to working with installations like this, where putting this installation on a place that are cold, and it's spaces that are unused in the town, and if you put this, like in this case, we helped Malmö Stad with building this antemortem. When you went into this photo booth, it projected on a building, which generated that people were interested and went there. So it create this community in a square. And we also tried, we developed this music idea further on to make some kind of business out of it, where we thought that, okay, we will do this jukebox where we can make money. We can make money, the artists can make money, the places that distribute these jukeboxes can make money. Also taking the jukebox back again. And here you could pay with an SMS, and then have your favorite music play at the public space. And in this installation we did it in a figure skating track, so you can skate and listen to music, and the money went to Radiohjälpen. Please ask me questions. So if you wonder, what? No, unfortunately not. People thought 6 crowns was a real lot of money to pay for a music, even if it was Radiohjälpen. But right after this, there was no marketing involved either. It was just we put it up, so there were no marketing resources behind it. That could also be a issue. But then I think it was forbidden to pay with SMS unless you had this My Wallet service. So then it got complicated, and then we just no, we don't we don't want to do this anymore. But we, if someone has an idea, so please talk to me. This is another example of an urban probe. Actually, without a screen, you might say, but we built these graffiti cans that sounded like real cans, and we had a speaker. When you pressed, it sounded like a can, and then you could draw collaboratively on a wall. So this is the screen actually, but the users don't see the screen. It's kind of ubiquitous as well, and it was really popular. We hadn't expected to be this popular, because we didn't write that in the offer that we had to be there 7 days a week with a big line of kids standing in line to draw on the wall. And then after day 3 we realized, okay, what do you think 14-year-old, mostly guys, want to draw on the building? So we need to build this like big red button so we can empty the screen quickly. Yeah, and after a certain time, that was the time when they started to drawing these symbols. That kind of, I mean, it's not illegal, but it felt bad. The same thing happened when we had this, you can share images right on a screen in a public space with Bluetooth. Bluetooth also was this technology that later on got complicated. But then at a certain time, like 7 or 7:30, people started to send these things that we didn't know what it was, but the youth understood it. And all of a sudden the police came and we had to turn it off. So that's kind of way of influencing a place. But most of what I did in the last 5 years has been about non-visual interactions. Of course, we have used the iPhone to build apps, but the interaction hasn't been scrolling and a screen. It has been gestures, moving around, pointing, listening. And the most successful project for me was the Nivinavi project together with Lund's University. It was about motivating and learning visually impaired kids and how to walking with a stick. And then we thought, okay, then we should do some kind of interactive sensor in the stick, but it felt like we didn't have the budget for that, so instead we built this app game. So you had a stick and you had the air scanner, you might say, to find lost animals. And then when you hear this certain sound, like an animal in the bushes, you have to wave and capture the animal. So then you got feedback on which animal it was, and then you just continue to look for the next animal. So it was a small, like a kind of game learning experience.
A question on that?
Yeah.
Did you also build it? It sounds a bit like Pokemon. Did you also make it like a collecting thing?
Yeah, we thought about having collectors cards, like putting a lot of animals around the city. But in this case, it was the leaders of the kids that put out the animals, because they knew where to train. So it was kind of, but it was random animals. But it was also research projects, and research project has a budget. So after this project was done, it was just delivered as an app, and then we went on to other projects. But a lot of people have said to me, you should put this on Kickstarter. So maybe that's the next thing. Because we have films where, actually, when I was going to Matthias that held the 040 X 040 event in Hamburg. He had a wedding, and on the way home in the boat I was sleeping, and I heard my own voice from this app on the TV. And then one of the kids, actually this kid, had gone to Landet Runt, a Swedish, what do you call it, news covering local news, was covering this story in a little bit of crazy way. But it was really strange to have this, okay, this might be a success, but we have to look for funding, more funding to make this greater project. But it led to the platform Time Machine, alltså tidsmaskinen, which is about using the same kind of air scanning technology, but instead walking out in the forest, looking for culture and historical stories.
What do you mean by air scanning?
Yeah, this app works like a metal detector. So if you look for a point of interest, it will vibrate if you're on the right track. And then when you appear in the point of interest, actually a GPS point with media, it will do something. So you don't have to look at the screen, you just point and feel the vibrations. And if you can see, of course we have this arrow, so you can see the arrow where you should go. And this is Time Machine works. The tidsmaskinen we are working a lot with sounds, because film and images and text it doesn't work outdoors so good, because people don't want to go around like this or reading text. You don't have time for that when you are walking. It's really so sound is much better outdoors. And then I've been a little bit of nerd interest in this binaural technique, where you actually can hear where the sound are coming from. We had a problem because we just play music or speaker. You don't know, it always follows you in the ears. So now we have been experimenting with positioning the sounds with panning and volume and frequencies to create this soundscape outdoors. And that is really hard to, like, as a UX designer, you can't like write this on the screen, because sound behaves different than like buttons and images. So now it's time to present my design process. I always get this mission or a frame where I have to do something. And when you get that, for example, we have to motivate kids to walk around with a stick. You need to think about how to do this fun. So in that case, where I talked about before with the Nivinavi project, we put in some game elements, some funny sounds. This air scanner makes it more magical. So it like creates an engagement and motivation with the users. And if you talk about that project, this project, we had ideas. And the first one was to blow up Lund in pieces, where the kids acted as terrorists. Some film here, where we tested this in prototypes, and that was actually the most successful idea, I think. But we can go with that because what would the parents say, and so. Also shooting wild boars, like wild boars were coming and you were killing them, because they were actually a popular news. They were figuring in the news a lot then. But and also Super Mario jumping around and catching coins, but then we ended up with this a little bit boring finding farm animals, but it actually works for all and most ages. So then we all these ideas we iterated and make prototypes, and we tested them with the kids. We also tested them ourselves, even if it was snowstorm or raining, because working outdoors needs a lot of testing. It's not just sitting at the computer screen. And it has a different kind of, if you're gonna do UI sketches, you have to also describe the users, how they walk and what they do, and what should the app do then, or the sensor. So you have to have a more holistic view of the use. And then if it's another client, if it's not a research project, you maybe want to negotiate a new mission frame, because you feel that after all these iterations here, we came up with a better idea, and you should change this. Is it okay, or should we go with the old? Or, like you do, if you have a good project, you can just base it a little bit on the previous project and skip a lot of iterations here. How do you feel? Are you all working with UX design? Does this look like familiar? I haven't discussed this with anyone but myself. But that's an important ingredient, I think, with discussing with your colleague. Just putting out the words and get feedback. Often sometimes you have projects where you just sit and write it down yourself, write the whole offer, the requirements, everything. And you deliver, but you don't really know if you don't discuss it. So this is a spin-off project from the Nivinavi, the one where the kids were collecting animals. And this is just like we took out the component, the best component from that project, and built this cultural heritage tool where you can point, walk, and listen, all based on this air scanner. So this is an example of just making a remake from an early project where we just copy-paste, but we do it better. And I will talk about this project, recent project, where it's called Compositions, and it's the need. The client is music in southern part of Sweden. It's called Music i Syd in Swedish, and it's about letting musicians create music for the place. And in this case, it was actually Rami Sam from Tahrir Square. He was the kind of a hero in the Arabic Spring movement, playing live at Tahrir Square. But he told me that different parts of the square had different emotion and feelings, and they wanted to take that and move it to Malmö. So now there's an installation in Möllan right now, where you can go around and listen to how it was in the Tahrir Square. Do you know about Rami Sam? It was actually on the top 100 most important freedom musicians on Time's list. It was above, I think, Michael Jackson. So he's really big. I didn't know that at first either. So then we used an earlier project and went out testing using. There's an example of a point of interest, And mostly I work with ink, pen, and printer paper. It's really ugly. It's not something you want to show clients, but works really well in working internally, I think. And this is an example on how the panning should work in the Möllan. So this describes if you have the right ear to the center, the right should be 100 and the left should be 0. And if you're not in the middle, the volume should be 10%. And this is the user direction with the nose, and the volume 10%, left, right 50%. This is a way of describing how the programming should work when entering these zones. And this is a simple sketch of how it should look like on a phone. The inspiration from this candy bag. And this is the finished result. So when you go into the circle, it lights up in another color, and the client is free to have which color they want on the map. But you just briefly look at screen, and then you can start walking towards the circle. It's really simple, and that's my main principle, to keep it really simple. And if you can remove buttons, we always do that to make it easy to use. And this, I had to write this in order to make the programmer understand how it should work. So I have these easy sketches, and I call one sketch 3.2 and then write some text about it. It's not beautiful, but it works. Any questions? Video. Yeah. It's in the.
Linus är född med grön starr.
He's born blind.
Inspirera, och Linus måste därför använda käpp när han går. Och lära sig att gå med blindkäpp har tidigare varit tråkigt, men så är det inte längre. Handlar om en bonde som har förlorat sina djur.
Mm. Och professorn försöker komma åt dem, men då ska jag hinna hitta dem innan dess.
Ett prasslande ljud hörs i telefonen. Linus rör sig snabbt åt det hållet, och då blir käppen ett naturligt hjälpmedel.
This was the program I talked about.
Käppen. Och genom appen så har jag och käppen kommit in också. Och då så har jag tränat på det också.
Vi lägger ut positionerna.
The parents put out the animals so they can decide which route to take.
De här figurerna och djuren dyker upp, och det blir lite mer spännande då.
Men vilka djur det blir just då, det bestämmer telefonen.
Det bestämmer
The telephone decides which animals it should be.
Som Linus deltar i har pågått sedan 2010. Det är ett samarbete mellan synenheten vid Skånes universitetssjukhus och en digital designbyrå i Malmö.
As us. They won't say our company name for some reason.
Varför känns det viktigt att vara med om och testa sådana här saker?
För att yngre barn ska kunna komma hit och sånt och tycka det är roligare att gå i samband med käppen.
Hur lite tror du man kan vara för att använda det här?
How small can you be?
ganska liten.
Probably small.
Duktiga på det här med mobiler och touch och så här. Så det är mer naturligt för dem. Så att jag tror att man börjar i förskolan.
Even kindergarten.
Har Linus kunnat ägna sig åt det han vill? Hon är med hjälp av ledsynen kan han både cykla och åka skidor. Vad vill du bli när du blir stor?
Jag skulle vilja bli lokförare för jag älskar tåg, men det kan jag ju inte. Hjälpmedel kan ju säga utvecklas någonting.
Yeah. It was really strange that they themselves put this out. It wasn't press release from us, so we are not so good at marketing, but it was a lucky thing. And this is another example of a mission. We did My Story tours. I see that a lot of our project is location based, but it was about writing for the place and reading for the place in a way to make young people read more books, because they think like, if you have a mobile phone they will read it. But it is actually a company now, My Story Tours, and they have a lot of campaigns making young people write for the places and also go out and read. So it's about, you unlock different chapter if you go to certain places. This is an example. This is not no screen interaction because it's a lot of screen, but the walking experience and the writing, I mean, when you walk outdoors, you walk, so we have to think about how to access these written books and novels. What do you say about these sketches? Do you like it? It's all the whole app in one A4. That's my target. And make it understandable. And also I sketch a lot in whiteboards, because then you can change. It's easy to change than this ink, because ink you have to. You see, there's no errors at all. I probably did it again. And here's another. There's another project where we tried, before Google Glass came. They wanted to do this, but because Google Glass wasn't available for us, we bought these military goggles instead. It's what about enhancing the senses for young people out in the nature. So we had to think about how to do this. Think about goggles, but instead we built it for the phone, because it kind of simulates how you can make a Wayfinder. And also working with thematics, because if you want to learn about biology and nature, you have the whole forest. So we had to first of all, okay, we take this area and we call it something, and then we categorize the species and the plants inside it. So we had different levels of designing for this forest project, and it's a video that it's not the marketing material. It's just internal video to show. So first we had this Wayfinder where you can see, okay, this is 500 meters till this area. Yeah, what I'm talking about here is that the kids are coming to this, it's called Bokskogen, in buses, and then they don't go out in the forest, they just stay in the parking lot kicking balls and wait until the teacher maybe sit in fika, and then when they're done they go back to the bus. They're already at the buses and then can go back home again. So then they wanted something that can make students engage and interact a little bit more with the nature. So we had this thoughts about it should be a little bit correct for this nature nerds are really keen on keeping this terminology also. My colleague, we worked with.
He's the nature nerd, right?
He is a nature nerd, yes. And that's the castle. And when you enter the castle, you can see certain objects instead. So it changes from going into the area, and then you can see the objects. And then when you went, for example, to a tree, you could actually like click on a tree to get the information. We tried with RFID tags, so it was really seamless interaction, just walking and pointing. And there's a lot more you can do. You can make courses with these kind of tools, I believe.